everybody, to another episode of Pro Cuts. We are excited to have our first female guest, and that is Mandy Bell, the beat writer for MLB.com for the Cleveland Indians. Hello, Mandy.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for having us. I forgot to mention Rob Friedman's here.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Rob's here. Creator of Flat Ground and the Pitching Ninja. So, Mandy, tell us, first of all, what exactly do you do? What does it mean to be a beat writer for MLB.com?
Oh, goodness. I mean, it's basically the everyday grind of showing up to the ballpark and trying to get into the clubhouse. I know things are a little bit different right now, but in normal circumstances, getting into the clubhouse, talking to the guys, talking to Tito, and then doing whatever you can pregame, getting some pregame notes in, posting to Indians.com. All my stories go there, and just trying to cover the team as best as possible. I mean, trying to travel as much as I can, going on the road and seeing as many games as possible. All these things are making me miss it more just talking about it right now. But yeah, so it's just trying to get the best stories that you can possibly get, cover the story of the night every single night, and wake up and do it all again the next day.
How many female beat writers are there for MLB.com?
Ooh, MLB.com, I think there's me, Maria, and I think three of us. I think there's three.
So, I mean, it's pretty crazy because, you know, you're a woman working in professional baseball. Like, is that a little bit crazy to you or no?
Honestly, I mean, if you start allowing yourself to think about it, I think it was Lindsay Adler with The Athletic who did a story last year about her second year on the beat, and she listed how many female reporters across the country there were that were in our exact position, and it was some ridiculously low number, like 35 or something like that. And that's whenever you start thinking, oh my gosh, this is a bigger deal than what you think it is on an everyday basis. And Cleveland specifically, there's no other women in the press box. I mean, there's sideline reporters, even a male. I mean, everything you look around, they have a couple people in their community like relations department and a couple, maybe one or two in their communications department, but just on the beat, it's just me. And I didn't really realize it until halfway through the season last year when my aunt asked me how many other women there were around me. And I looked around, I'm like, oh, I guess there's none. But it's something you just get accustomed to. I mean, throughout college, I was always the only female doing some of the sports stuff. I mean, you just sort of grow into it. And it's not really like it's something that you see or feel or anything like that, just because you're in your element and you're comfortable and you try not to focus on minor things like that.
I think that's awesome. How close of a knit a community is there? Because you mentioned Lindsay, who I'm friends with. There's a whole, I mean, is it a tight knit community of women in baseball? Like, I mean, you have Emily Walden, Jessica Kleinschmidt, a whole bunch of folks coming at it a different way. I'm just curious how that inner workings go.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's cool because you see different things in media and in regular life where maybe people talk about how women don't like to always get along as well, and it's not as easy for them to get along as well. And I wasn't really sure coming into this business how it would be, just because we are such a minority. And I think it was my first year of my internship with MLB.com in 2017, whenever I realized that women from other teams that they cover, and they were coming over to me to make sure that I was good and what my experience was like. And I quickly realized, like, okay, this is a different world. Like, we're in this together. And yeah, so I mean, we're all pretty close, and anytime you cross paths, you try to meet everybody that you can, and everyone realizes the situation that you're in. You're a little bit in a minority, and you want to help each other as best as you can. So yeah, Lindsay, you mentioned it, Lindsay Adler. She's like my favorite person on the planet. So I don't think you get better than Lindsay Adler.
Oh no, she's fantastic. But what I think is important is if baseball is going to continue to grow, getting different points of view is going to be extremely important for the game to grow, and everybody having each other's back, kind of like instead of the whole old boys club, but having groups having their own support. I mean, I think that's kind of what I view our role, Josh and I, and baseball Brit when he comes in, but I want to make the game broader, and I think that's kind of where your mindset is too.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't really get into this field unless you sort of have that mindset as well, because you know what you're getting into. You know that you're coming into a world that's mostly male, and you know that you're going to probably be the only girl in the room a lot of times. And I think that a lot of us take pride in that because you sort of want to prove that you can do everything the same. It gets frustrating because you do have that weight on your shoulders a lot that you have to prove that you know just as much as the guy standing next to you. Whenever a new guy comes in the room, he might not necessarily feel like he has to prove it, but just we do, because everyone always just, it seems like people in the back of their mind want to think, oh, does she even know what she's talking about? But to me, I think it's fun. I think that's a challenge, and it's always fun to outsmart or outwit or whatever you want to do to other people, especially whenever it comes to Twitter. I think it's just a challenge. And if you put it in that mindset, it's a lot more enjoyable than what it could be.
So do you think that, or like growing up, did you want to be a professional baseball player? Did you think that was a realistic goal? Was there a point when you're like, okay, I'm not going to be a professional baseball player?
I think probably when I was like 4 or 5, when I really started to get into baseball, there was that one time where I would say like, okay, I want to be Derek Jeter because he was my idol. But I've always been very realistic, even from a young age. And I realized, okay, there's no girls in baseball. Like, not saying that can't ever be a thing, but I don't think I'm going to be the one who breaks that. So I want to figure out a different way in. I've always been obsessed with the game of baseball. I've watched it every single night. I mean, I got to the point, my dad was a bigger football fan than he was baseball, but he was a big Yankees fan and brainwashed me from a young age. And I got to the point where I'd go down to our basement because we had DirecTV in our basement just so that I could get the Yes Network. And so I'd go down to my basement and I'd be watching it by myself every night, just texting my dad updates upstairs whenever like the football season was going on. We'd have our sports floors and I'd go downstairs, and it was always fun. And so I just wanted to figure out a way to get to baseball however I possibly could.
Well, I know you had mentioned that being a Yankees fan actually is what led you to broadcasting. So can you tell us that story?
Yeah, it was a couple of days before Father's Day, and we were trying to figure out something to do for my dad. And my dad just jokingly threw out, well, the Yankees are in Houston this weekend. We should go down and see them play. And it was a weekend, so a lot of the hotels, like the business hotels in the area, were like super cheap, and we were like, all right, let's go for it. Let's just go down and let's go see the Yankees play. Well, we ended up staying in the same hotel as the Yankees by chance, somehow staying in the same room beside Derek Jeter. It was like a dream vacation for, oh gosh, was I 12 or 13? Yeah, that was like a dream vacation, seeing all of my favorite players in the lobby and the elevators. But we were walking around and we were heading into the elevator, and Michael Kay, their play-by-play, and Ken Singleton, who has done color for them, they were in the elevator. They were the crew that was on the trip. And so I'm freaking out because I knew that their job was pretty cool, and I've obviously listened to them every night. So I'm talking to them and I'm thinking, man, their job is awesome. Like, they're here. They just got to talk about the game that they just called. I mean, their job is just to talk about the performances, talk about the guys. And so it clicked with me, like, I want to do something what they do. And ever since I came home from that trip, I never changed my mind. I wanted to just report, and I wanted to get into it somehow. And luckily, the only school I wanted to go to was Penn State. And I looked it up as soon as we got back, and they had a good sports journalism program. So it worked out really well.
Obviously, I'm a pitching guy, and I love Cleveland's pitchers. To what extent do you interact with them? Can you dish a little bit on them? We just interviewed Bauer, who's no longer an Indian, last weekend, but we have Mike Clevenger coming up. Give me some idea of some of the inner workings on that pitching staff.
Oh my goodness, the pitching staff's fantastic. I mean, having Bauer there my first year on the beat was super helpful because he was really easy to work with. I know that the press that he gets, it can be questionable, but he was a really great asset to start with because there's not many people you can learn more from than someone who studies it around the clock and is willing to teach you if you're willing to listen. So to have him on the rotation at least for half of a season during my first year was really cool, because anytime you had an interview with him, you'd walk away like you just sat through like an hour-and-a-half seminar, and you're just like, wait, I got to digest a little bit what I just listened to. But it's a really cool dynamic being around them because they're such a unit. Whether like new people are coming up, you have Zach Plesac and Aaron Savali, who got caught up last year, who are 2 rookies, and no matter what, they immediately become a unit, and they're always going to watch each other's bullpens. They're always going together, and they're always feeding off of each other. They find competition within each other. And to be able to sit back and be a spectator during all of that and see how the inner workings work within just the pitching staff, it was super cool to be able to see. Because I mean, I was an intern the last 2 years and I never saw that type of chemistry or dynamic within a rotation before.
And then you have Corey Kluber. I was wondering if you ever got him to talk.
See, it was different because he did get hurt pretty early in the season, and then we didn't talk to him as much. But I know a lot of people always say that he was very, I mean, he is very reserved. He's very quiet, more so in group settings. But whenever you talk to him one-on-one, he opens up way more. And he was, I mean, obviously it's Corey Kluber. He was a great person to talk to. He's a great resource. But in group settings, he can be a little bit more quiet.
Do people in Cleveland hate the people in Miami as much as the people in Miami hate Cleveland?
I don't think so.
Going back to the Marlins, the LeBron issues. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm from South Florida, and Cleveland.
Okay.
Cleveland's one of those sports beds that you're really competitive with, and especially the LeBron thing hurt when he went back. So
I'm sure it did.
why were you not scared away from broadcasting? Because it's a male dominated, career field. Like, didn't that scare you away? Especially nowadays, like, we see so much and hear so much with the Me Too movement. And why were you okay and not worried about just jumping in and doing what you wanted to?
I mean, I just think since a young age, I've always just been so sports minded. I played basketball, tennis, and softball. And that was just part of me. I always was involved in sports there was a good solid group of girls who were also super into sports, but like that wasn't their life and it was my life. And so I always just connected better with the guys in my classes because that's what they were talking about. And so it was just so easy for me to make friends with guys and to always just be a part of that group. So as I moved up through college, I was a part of a student-run radio station, and the sports department was 98.9% guys. And it's just the world that I've always been involved in. And whenever you're just comfortable with what you're talking about and comfortable with what you're researching and what you're covering, like it doesn't really matter who's been around me, and it's just been always this, like, that's just who's always been there. So whenever I looked at it in a professional world, I never thought twice about it, and that's why I didn't even notice, like I said, that I was the only female in the room, because it's just comfortable.
Do you think, what about young females growing up? I mean, do you think they're being maybe scared away from industries because of the media that they shouldn't be, and they should pursue certain avenues that maybe they wouldn't, just because, like, is there a scary environment out there? I mean, I'm not a female, I wouldn't know, but I feel like there is. I
mean, I've luckily not been involved in any scary environments, but I've heard hundreds of stories of people who have. I mean, Brittany Giroli is a person who I interned for in 2017, and she's been a mentor to me. And I've heard her tell stories that I've been very uncomfortable for her. And anytime I have any type of situation where I'm like, okay, I don't really know how this works, I text her immediately. I'm like, tell me what to do. I'll do whatever you say, because you have to sort of find people who have been through those moments that can help guide you better. And I think that the generation above us, of women, I think they've been super helpful. I mean, I have Allison Footer as well with MLB.com, and she's somebody that will tell me whatever I need to hear. I mean, they're a very honest group. And so I think the bad part is that the media that women get in sports, it's only bad. It just seems like any type of story that you hear, it's only because it was a bad circumstance, like last postseason with the Astros, and you heard about the female group in the clubhouse after the postseason, and it was just like, and you never really hear about the fact that, oh, it's a great environment for women, because why is that really a story? That's how the media would view it. There's no story about saying everything's all fine. The story comes whenever it's, oh, something's wrong. So I think that's the only time that we ever really hear about it. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, you don't hear about it on a daily basis, and that's because it's been fine on a daily basis. So I think that just the times that we hear about it, it gets hyped up so much that it seems like it's a constant problem when it really isn't.
What would you say to younger females that are at the, the high school level or the middle school level that are thinking of getting into this kind of career?
I definitely don't think it should be anything that you're scared of. I think it's something that you look at as a challenge, especially for anyone who's interested in sports. Typically has a competitive type of mindset, even if it's just a little bit. I mean, I'm off the charts competitive. It's gets to an unhealthy level, but whatever. It's gotten me here. So I think I look at anything with a competition as something that's fun, and I want to prove people wrong, and I like to be better than what the standard is, and I'm always trying to work to be better at that. So I think if there's anyone that's considering it at all, they obviously have a little bit of that. And so rather than be scared by it or intimidated by the field, just look at it as a challenge and look at it as something that you can prove people wrong, because whenever you start to do that, that feeling is fun and it's enjoyable. Whenever you start to feel it a little bit, when people are like, oh, well, she's better than I thought she was, you start to ride off of that. And you're like, okay, I want to keep doing it. And it's really, like I said, it's not like it's a bad environment to be in. We wouldn't be in it if it was a bad environment to be in. And it's not something to be afraid of. So if it's something that's your passion, start trying it out at less intense levels. If through high school, if you have opportunities to do something where you can call games for like your local high school and do different things like that. I know I've had friends in high school who did just like PA announcing, like just doing stuff like that. I mean, you can just get any type of experience as possible. I did the morning announcements in high school. I did whatever I possibly could just to get in front of a camera and be like as comfortable as possible, and just see if it's something that you like, because it's as important to find out what you don't like as it is what you do like. And I think just trying out things, if you have any type of desire to be in this position at all, just trying it out. There's nothing that hurts in that field.
That's why Josh and I are doing this. We're trying out our skills at video and going to get into broadcast. No, we're not really going to do that. I think I saw you were covering the MLB The Show tournament. Yeah. How important is that, do you think, to the future of baseball? Like the ability for players to get their personalities out there. To me, it seems like a shortcoming of baseball, but I was wondering what you thought and what your overall takeaway was from that.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think it's super important to be able to have players have like a platform like that. The way that they had the platform there, I mean, it was, I don't want to admit that, like, you sit here and you say, oh, Brett Phillips isn't someone that's really on my radar every single day. He's not someone that you really think about. And
can you do his laugh?
Oh, no. No one can pull off the pterodactyl laugh like he can, because that was really, I mean, he exploded throughout. Anyone who watched any of those games, he became the fan favorite. And I can tell you the majority of people wouldn't know Brett Phillips heading into that. And I think that stuff's important, because there's some big personalities in this game that just, they're not really out there too much. And I think the way Major League Baseball went about taking advantage of the time that we do have right now, that it's a little bit of lull in activity, which is frustrating, but the way that they put these guys out there during that tournament, I think it's something that we do need more of. And it was a blast to cover. I was a little intimidated at first because I'm not a big gamer. I got the show because I was stuck at home and wanted to do something baseball related, and I played a little bit. So I got on our 4-person beat crew who covered it. But it ended up being such a blast, and you got to see Fernando Tatis, and you got to see all these guys who were just so funny and just made it so much fun to cover, and you just miss the game and you miss being around the guys. So yeah, I think it's something that's important to continue going forward. Yeah,
I kind of got addicted to watching both Blake Snell and Amir Garrett on their feeds as well. I thought they were hilarious.
Oh gosh, Blake Snell is I Need It So Bad and everything like that. I mean, you would hear the voices afterwards. It would just get stuck in my head, him yelling. I mean, that's what you need, though. I mean, it brings out a completely different side of the guys that people are used to just seeing on the mound, and it takes them from being, oh, Blake Snell the pitcher, to just being Blake Snell the person. And I think that makes them a lot more relatable, and people can enjoy the game a little bit better.
I'm going to let Rob continue to have fun talking about baseball while I take the journey through your career and your growing up. So you go to Penn State. That's the first time when you get into college that you have internships and you really get experience kind of in the professional field. What kind of challenges did you face at that time? I know you had told me one story about, I believe it was a 6-4-3 double play.
Yes.
So what was that, and what was the significance of that time for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fantastic time because, like I said, it's like the only time in your life that you can try out everything and not worry about failing at it, and not worry about, oh, I don't like this, I'm just not going to do it. It's a lot harder to do that once you're in a job. You can't just drop it and be like, oh, I'm going to try something else. So I try to take advantage of everything whenever I was at college, and it was great because Penn State had so many opportunities. One of those opportunities was we had a career advisor who was unbelievable. I mean, he would send out like 50 to 60 emails a day about internship opportunities. And then once you started to get into your junior and senior years, he was sending out job opportunities and things like that. And that's how I found out about all the internships that I had. Everything that I applied for, it was all through him. And going into my sophomore year was the hardest one because you're a little bit too young for what people are looking for to try to get an intern, because they want to try to see if you could get hired after that, or you have a little bit more experience under your belt. So when I was going through that process, I was able to get an interview. It was a production internship that was like a video production. And they were saying that you have to understand how the filing system works. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. They said, you need to understand baseball to be able to file. And I said, okay, yeah, that's why I'm here. And then they said, well, I mean, you have to actually understand the terms. I said, okay. And they said, so if I said 643 to you, does that mean anything? I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's like the most basic thing possible. Of course that means something to me. And it's that was like the moment that, okay, well, this is what you're going to have to deal with. And rather than getting too offended by it, obviously it stuck with me. But and instead of getting like too offended by it, it just was like my first realization of, okay, you're going to have people who need you to prove. And rather than allowing that to get me too frustrated, I use that as, okay, well, this is where the competition turns on, and I want to continue to prove people in every situation whenever I get there, so that maybe they don't even have to ask the question. I can just completely shut it off before they even ask anything to prove that, yes, I do know what a 6-4-3 double play is.
Where does that motivation come from? Like, do you think that's just an innate ability or characteristic of a person?
I think that some of it, maybe. Growing up, I was just always competing with my dad in every game possible, and I always just wanted to win. I think just having constant competition. I'm an only child, but I had a cousin who was the same age as me who lived beside me, so he'd come over all the time, and we'd play ping pong for like 12 and a half hours straight, and that was all we did for the entire day. And like just the drive to want to beat him at every single thing that we did. I think that was something that just instilled in me. It felt like my entire childhood I was always in sports or activities or something, and just constantly wanted to keep winning at things and proving that I can, and even in that sense, beat the guys at sports and do things like that. So I think a part of it was also just being an enormous Derek Jeter fan, because he was just the ultimate competitor, and I tried to just do every single thing the way that he did it growing up. I mean, I had the Jeter cleats. I wore number 2 in every sport that I played. And it was just, I had that in the back of my head of how would Jeter handle this situation? How would he do this? And that was just always my mindset growing up. So I think a mix of it's sort of there. And then just having constant competition and good people to look up to.
Did you have one of those bracelets? What would Jeter do?
No, but
how bad of a joke is that, Rob? How
That's
bad of a
pretty
joke?
damn bad.
I was
going
to ask to watch Rob's face there and see what he would do. That's not a real question. I just want to see what Rob would do.
I was seriously going to ask her if she can do the Jeter jump throw. I mean, just go deep in the hole and jump, but I thought that might be on the spot a little bit.
No, see, I mean, I think everyone practices that. I think that's just what you did growing up. But I mean, I was a shortstop, but I didn't have the best arm. So like I was always like cheating up a little bit more. And in softball, you have like 0.2 seconds to throw it, get it and throw, because the base paths are so short. So you didn't really throw that off. I tried to do more of, if I dove, I didn't really have enough time to get up because everyone's so fast. So I always threw from the knees. So that was like my version of my like Jeter throw. So I tried to adapt as much as possible.
I was going to say, do you still watch softball? Because I've actually said I've gotten into helping the folks over D1 softball during last year. And I just found like there's a ton to learn about pitching and softball. And I think they thought it was going to be an easy jump. And I'm like, I need some outside help on this. Like, what's a rise ball? What's a drop ball? How does this stuff work? Do you still watch a lot?
Oh, the rise ball was my kryptonite. I hated the rise ball. I covered it at Penn State a little bit for our radio station. I also wrote for the athletics website there. So I did a little bit with softball. And it was always so fun to go over and play because, I mean, people look at it as like the girl version of baseball, but like there is a different type of strategy to softball. There's a whole bunch of different layers to it. And it's so fun to watch. I mean, it makes me miss playing so much every time I watch it. But as soon as I got out of school, I've been thrown into this as much as I can. And so whenever you're thrown into baseball, because of the season being so long and so involved, I feel like I'm always watching it. And whenever I come home, I mean, I'm watching other games and my whole life is baseball. So you start to realize you're missing out on a lot of other sports whenever you're getting so involved in this one. So that's one of the downfalls because I do miss watching things like softball. I do miss watching other sports from time to time, but I guess I can't complain about having to watch baseball every day.
So why do you think we don't have a women's baseball league? Do you think that that's possible and that it's something that, we have a WNBA, an LPGA tour, and, we have an indoor football, even though, I don't necessarily agree with the way that's marketed, but there are female leagues out there. Should we have a female baseball league?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, I don't see anything or any reason why you shouldn't have one. I think the reason that you probably don't is that everyone just looks at softball as just like the complete opposite of baseball. And that fills the female role of whatever baseball would be. And it's different. I mean, it's not the same game. You don't see anyone in a full windmill on the baseball, like on the baseball field. Like, it's just not how it works. There's different aspects to it. But when you see Little League and you see people like Monet Davis and the things that they were able to show, and just show how women can play baseball. I definitely think that that's something that could possibly happen in the future, but the reason that it's not, I think it's just everyone looks at softball, and it's not like professional softball is as huge as professional baseball, but I think, just the dominance that the USA softball team has had in the Olympics and things like that, I think that's just gotten enough recognition that people say, oh, well, we have softball, why would we need women playing baseball?
Yeah, I think that I think it's changing slowly. I mean, I covered some of the women's world championships last year and it was good. I mean, I think it's obviously, as you mentioned, a totally different sport. A little story, a woman I work with, she's the daughter of a major league pitcher and she didn't want to play softball growing up. She only wanted to play baseball. And I don't think her dad even let her play softball. He wanted her to play baseball. So I'm seeing a lot of women that actually want to go take that baseball route, and especially in countries, I know it's in Japan, it was pretty big. In the U.S., there's a whole subculture of women baseball players who should be brought to the forefront. So I'm wondering if we're missing out on something to spread love of the game.
Yeah, I definitely think we could be. I mean, you see all these things. I mean, like I said, I mean, I interned with Little League in 2016. Geez, that was a long time ago now. But that was like the greatest summer.
You're old.
I know. And that was like the greatest summer of my life. I mean, that place is unbelievable. And to have been there to see how all the teams interact. But the way that people like Monet Davis are still talked about every single year, it was really, really neat to see that. And to hear all the Little League employees and talk about the press that she like brought in and how much they had to go like super hardcore to make sure that she was protected and make sure that she had the same experience as everyone else, but also make sure that like they were allowing her to speak out to like grow the game and things like that. I mean, just to hear all of that type of stuff. I mean, you think that there's definitely going to be a future beyond just 12 years old at Alameda Stadium. I think there's definitely more than that.
So speaking about growing the game, and I think it's really important, watching KBO stuff now, you see some stuff that they're getting really right, I think, and letting personalities show, bat flips, having fun with the game. Where do you think the next step is for Major League Baseball to get kind of more along that road?
I think it's getting there, and it's just getting there a little bit more slowly than other sports, or like you say, KBO. I mean, it's a little bit different. I think that they've been trying to incorporate that when they have their players weekend now in August, whenever they allow them to have like nicknames and fun cleats and different things like that. I think you see it a little bit more. I think it was it last postseason, whenever you saw some guys carrying their bats down to first base, and you're seeing a little bit more dramatic bat flips, and the way it was promoted in like MLB The Show tournament, when you were talking about having some bat flips in that, and we were talking about like, you have Robert Flores, who kept saying about L2ing each guy and like making them sit through the replays. And I think things like that are slowly trying to promote bringing more personality to the game. But I just think it's been a sport forever that's just like such a traditional mindset, where we follow the rules, we get the job done, and we look at it more of that. And MLB's initiative of let the kids play, I think it's just slowly getting there.
Yeah, when you think about it, and again, seizing on that, when you think about the traditional mindset, does that keep people out of the game and keep people from wanting to be part of the game? You see someone like Marcus Stroman, who shows emotion on the mound, and players that are doing bad. The stoicness or the staidness of the game, do you think that keeps women out of it? Do you create artificial barriers to people wanting to get involved in the game?
It could. I mean, I think everyone has a specific taste that they like and things that they prefer to see. I mean, I am different because I've always had the traditional mindset. Like, that's always just been me, probably because I was a big Derek Jeter fan and he was Mr. No Emotion, and that's just sort of how I grew up.
Derek's watching this, by the way.
Oh, I hope so. So, and then, like, I mean, that was just sort of how I've always viewed it. So for me, it's also like a transition into, okay, well then let's show more personality. But whenever you see it, you realize how fun it can be. And I think that the people who do have the traditional mindset, just as long as they're like a little bit more open-minded, as long as they see it, like you can see that it brings a lot of more fun aspects to the game. And then you have the groups that maybe didn't get involved in baseball. They're like, oh, it's so boring. There's nothing to even watch for, like whatever. And then if you see that, then it's like, okay, well, maybe we can grab a few more people watching every game every single night. I don't think that it can hurt by bringing a little bit more personality and a little more flair to the game, just because it could encompass a bigger viewing than what it does right now.
How did you get here? We got up to the part with the Penn State and the internships, but we didn't get over the hump there of, okay, so how did you actually break into the game?
Yeah, so after my Little League internship in 2016, I was lucky enough to get the internship with MLB.com, which it's a little different now. Before, they used to have an internship where a college student would be assigned to all 30 teams, and you just helped the reporter, and it was unbelievable because, I mean, no college kid gets that type of experience. And it was really, really neat. As a freshman, Penn State had a information session where MLB.com was just coming to speak to juniors and seniors about the opportunity that you could have. Anyone who was already scheduled for an interview could maybe get some tips heading into it. And I messaged my career advisor and I said, can I go? I mean, I'm a freshman, but can I just go to the information session? He said, I don't see why not. And so the representative from MLB came and he was asking to raise your hand, how many seniors, how many juniors. And there were like 2 sophomores and I was like the only freshman. And he made a joke like, why are you here? And I just made all these notes about what he wanted to hear in the interview. And then 2 years later, I said all those things when I was a junior. And he said in the interview, man, you said everything I wanted you to say. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, you made fun of me for being here, but I was there for a reason. So then I covered the Orioles in 2017, covered the Yankees in 2018 with Brian Hoke. And then I got lucky with both of those, because 2017 was the year that Brittany Droley was doing a lot of like on camera work with the network. She was doing, like, when we were trying out Twitter shows and different things like that, she was going up there every week. So then the beat was left to me. So I got a lot of experience of just being on my own. And then the next year with Brian Hoke, his wife had a baby and he got a month off. And so I had the Yankees beat by myself, straight out of college for a full month, which was crazy. And it's just those sink or swim situations that you figure out if this is working for you, and that's when you learn the most. And so I got lucky enough, and they kept me full time after that internship and assigned me to Cleveland, which is how I'm here now.
And what are the goals moving forward for you?
Oh goodness, I don't know. I love where I am right now. I think it's a fantastic job. I mean, this is the dream job. I couldn't have imagined having a better lifestyle than what I do right now, just being able to watch baseball every single day. And I don't really know much more than that. It's hard because whenever you set out for a dream and you get there, you're not really sure what's next because you've been working for so long just to get to this point. And now it's like, okay, so now what? So I don't know. I think for the immediate future, I think I love the spot that I'm in. And down the road, I don't know. It's a tough lifestyle for women. It's definitely different for men than like if you're trying to have a family. So it's much, much more different. And Jen Langosh, who was our St. Louis reporter forever before this past season, she had a baby and she tried to come back and she tried to balance both. And if she can't do it, then I don't know how many people can, because that woman is like Superwoman. So I don't know. That's where it gets difficult, because that's another aspect where you don't really think about it as much. But women have a couple more challenges than men do whenever it comes to that side of it. So I don't know whenever we get to that point if I can continue to balance both or not.
Yeah, you answered the question I wanted to ask, which was that, you face different challenges. Like, is it even possible to, have a family almost right now in your role? I guess it's possible, is it reasonable to do? What are some of the other challenges that you face simply because you're a female in this industry?
I mean, I think it's just things that have become second nature at this point that you don't really even notice that you're doing. Like maybe you think twice about different things that you have, like that you wear every single day. Like guys don't have to be worried about like what type of like shirt or pants or whatever they're wearing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just have to think a little bit more about different things to make sure that you're not doing anything wrong. You might have to think a little bit more about the way you word things, or I think it can be more of a challenge for women to figure out how to get contacts. I mean, asking players for their numbers is something that might be simple for guys because they're just like, hey, I might have a question this offseason. Can I just have your number so I can text you? But girls, if you ask a guy for their number, it looks a little bit more weird. So you're trying to figure out the best way to approach that. You're trying to figure out how to do everything the most politically correct way possible so you're not ever seeming like you're doing anything wrong, because that's the last impression that any of us ever want to give off. So
well, it is, that's true. That's not something that I thought about, but it was even the case when I reached out to you. It's like I'm reaching out to you on Twitter and asking for your number, and to me, like, there was a little bit of awkwardness there, just I guess because of the gender lines, right? Like, I mean, I'll get I don't mind asking a ball player for his number, but then, hey, will you send me a text? And it was different. Like, I didn't think about that, but it is totally true.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think all of us have sort of thought about, and that's when, going back to your question, Rob, from earlier about how close women are. I mean, these are the things that we talk about. I went to the postseason. I helped cover for MLB last year. I was at the ALCS, and whenever you start to see everybody that you've crossed paths with before, you say, okay, hey, all right, I went through this season and now I'm like, I don't know how to handle this situation. So how did you handle this situation the first time you did it? And you just start getting everyone's feedback to figure out the best possible way to go about it.
Yes, I was even, honestly, like, I was even a little bit felt awkward cropping your pictures and my wife walking by, like doing a baseball project. Like, I'm serious. I know it's weird and we're laughing.
Dude, maybe that's on you.
It's just different. Like, it is different. Like, I didn't think of these things, but you're 100% right.
But to that point, what could we do better? I mean, what could guys either on Twitter, on social media, or in the sport itself do better to not make it awkward?
Oh, goodness. I mean, I think everyone would have their own opinion on it. I think mine is just the whole thing about equality and being the same. It seems like because of that, and guys are so aware of it now, and they want to make sure that everything's the same. Like, I have the best beat in the world. The guys on this beat are like my best friends, and like I don't even think twice about being with them. But like, I think that it's so easy for guys to start then overthink and then making sure they're going out of their way to make sure that women feel the same, but then that's also women getting special treatment. And it's just like, just stop thinking. I think that's just the biggest thing for me. It's just genuinely just treat us like we would treat everybody else. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of the guys here give me a hard time because you hear people walk by and everyone's like, oh, hey guys. And then they see me and they're like, oh, and lady. And everyone always gives me a hard time for it because it's like,
Yeah.
Hey guys, like it's fine. I'm perfectly fine. You don't have to specify that the one lady is here. But yeah, I think it's just turning off the brain and just acting as normal as possible.
Rob, what else you got, Rob?
I was going to make fun of you, and I'm not going to. I was just going to say it's pretty easy for Josh to turn off his brain, but
no, I
apparently
that to you.
Apparently not that easy because you're worried about clipping out
pictures
pictures and stuff. I mean, come on, man.
I can't stop thinking about what you're talking about now because I'm going back to like when we were trying to set the interview up and I'm asking you to send me pictures of yourself and like it is Rob's shaking his head, but like I didn't think of this stuff and
you're just awkward.
My attention, like yeah, it is like there's no way I feel like of changing that, some of that stuff, right? Like that's just human nature, some of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always there. I think the biggest thing is, and not many people realize that it is there. And when you're asking for differences between men and women in this job, I think women know it's there and men really don't. And we're always trying to prevent it. And we're always thinking like 4 steps ahead of like, okay, how could it go bad if we word it in a certain way? How could this always happen? And it just seems like our minds have to always be going. And guys can just go to the clubhouse and just be like, oh, I see this person that I needed to talk to them. I ask 2 questions and leave. And
there it is. We got it, Rob. We got the jab. Finally, it took 45 minutes.
My favorite is on Twitter is if anybody ever steps over a line the way Lindsay eviscerates them in like 1 sentence, and I'm like, I mean, it's amazing. Her ability to do that and make someone feel that big in like 20 words is one of the most amazing things I've seen.
Well, like I was saying, the guys on this beat are like my best friends, and I cannot tell you the number of times that I just send Lindsay's tweets to Zach Meisel of The Athletic here, and I say she's just my favorite person. Every time she tweets, I'm just like, she's just so, she doesn't care, one. She will say whatever she has to say, but it's things that need to be said most, like 99% of the time, and it's so fun to sit back and know that she's a friend of mine and can just enjoy everything that she posts out there because she really is fantastic.
Well, she's actually been over my house and thrown in my basement, so that's
no way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She did. I mean, it's true. Don't give me that look, Josh.
That's weird.
Why is it weird? She came over to do a story, and we were like going through what we would do if we were teaching how to.
I mean, you got to explain that more.
I'm sorry, but I mean, it happened.
Thrown in the basement, like what?
All right, yeah, cut this whole clip out. I'm just giving some background on it. I mean, gee whiz, Josh.
Oh my goodness. Rob, you got anything else?
No. If I had I would just shoot you right now.
Oh my goodness. Rob, go ahead. Your parting words.
Oh, I think this was great. It's a pleasure talking with you. I know I've read your stuff, and now it's awesome to get to know you some more.
Well, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Thank you so much for coming on. I don't think I'm going to cut any of it because obviously me and Rob are the awkward guys, and we are a proof of everything.
You got to cut having Lindsay in my basement. That's just terrible.
You're awesome, really, and good luck. And I hope we can stay in touch with you. I mean, you could definitely be an ambassador for young women out there, young girls coming up who want a place in a male-dominated industry. And I just think this is awesome. I'm so happy we ended up making this happen. So thank you very much for doing it.
Yeah, thank you. This is great.